Hi, my name is Howery, and today we're going to be talking about the professional wrestling scene in the world as it is today. We're going to be talking about that, I'm going to be informing you about it, we're going to talk to you about the history, the popularity behind it, and all the backstage stuff that goes into making a professional wrestling show. Now, professional wrestling has been around for over 100 years now. And over these 100 years, many changes have happened to the industry, to the popularity of the promotions themselves, and to the world. And so, a lot of things have changed the popularity of wrestling, and the history is deep and it's hard to delve into. So I'm not going to be able to get into that, but I will give you some basics and some introduction into the world of professional wrestling. Now, why would you want to listen to this, and why do you care about professional wrestling? Well, here's the thing: it's a very accepting community. No matter the skin color you have, no matter the sexuality you have, or the gender you have, it's for you, and it's for anyone who likes this sort of stuff. It's no one's getting held out, and that's one of the reasons why it's one of the best entertainment companies in the entire world. From its inception, professional wrestling has always been an entertaining product with a devoted fans and many reasons to watch it, and that's never ever changed. In professional wrestling history. I do have to talk about my credibility on the subject of professional wrestling. I've been a loyal fan for many, many years since my childhood, and I've always loved every single second that I've watched. And this is something I want to get into as a profession. So I've looked up on this stuff, and I read up on this stuff, and I've watched many, many, many promotions, and I follow many, many superstars' careers. And so I feel very much like I'm credible to talk about this subject. I will go over my main points real quick. I'm going to talk about the history of professional wrestling. I'll go over the popularity of professional wrestling, and I'm going to go over the backstage, what goes on backstage of these shows, and the decisions that goes on behind the curtain. So we're going to talk about the popularity and the history of professional wrestling. We're going to kind of tie them in together a little bit, because they do kind of tie in. The big historical landmark of professional wrestling is the Attitude Era. And the Attitude Era was a time in the 90s in which it was gory, it was sexualized, there wasn't women's wrestling, it was more just bra and panties matches, and it was just that kind of wrestling. And at this point, it really played well to the demographic of the young teen. And the quote I have is that the Attitude Era proved to be a huge marketing success of the WWF, drawing in previously unaccounted for young adult demographic that allowed them to successfully cripple competitor WCW by defeating them in the ratings war. Now, I talked about WCW. That's a big thing about the Attitude Era, is that it was WWE versus WCW, and this really bolstered the ratings and popularity for both of these groups. And over time, WWE did win. They won out over WCW, and in the end, they bought out WCW, taking the company, which I kind of ended the Attitude Era. After that, we got into the Ruthless Aggression Era, and this gave us people like John Cena. I don't know if you've heard of him, but he's kind of popular today. This man has done many things outside of the world of professional wrestling, which also contribute to the popularity of professional wrestling. When you see people like John Cena, The Rock, Dave Bautista, Drax in Guardians of the Galaxy, all these people are contributing to the popularity of professional wrestling just by doing things other than professional wrestling, which is kind of weird, but that's just how it is. In the Ruthless Aggression Era, we had people like John Cena, we had people like Randy Orton, we had people like Dave Bautista, like I said. And this is kind of where the women's revolution started, in which the women's population in wrestling was kind of more, respected, and they started pushing that envelope a little bit more, that women's wrestling was to be respected. This didn't really change much until earlier in the past few years, but this is where it really started. Now, we did have a women's revolution, but it wasn't really that important. It's like your one uncle who is still racist, but everyone else is not done being racist, but they're like, oh, look at me, now I'm done being racist, let's make a big deal out of it. Cool, so you're just a normal person, great. So that's kind of what this was. WWE made a big deal of pushing their women, even though all over the world, everywhere else, women were really getting respected for their wrestling and their wrestling talents. So it was something cool that happened, but it honestly wasn't as big a deal as everyone else thought it was, in my opinion. Now, we're going to talk about some backstage stuff in wrestling. I'm just going to throw some lingo out there so I'm going to be talking about. A push is a word in professional wrestling, which means that the powers that be, the company's owners, are behind you. If you are being pushed, that means that the people backstage really like you and they want you to be their star. Now, also realize that this is different from over. If you are over, that means the fans like you. You can be over and not be pushed. My visual representation I have, Ben, make sure that is that. That is Rusev. This is a man who got over but was not pushed. The fans liked this man, but the company did not. So, no, they liked him, but they just didn't do anything with him. This does suck, and backstage, people will get themselves over, and the trends backstage are very positive most of the time. So backstage, it's really just who likes you and if you can impress the right people. Now, there's a lot more stuff that I have to talk about professional wrestling, but honestly, I can't in 6 minutes. So just from its inception, professional wrestling's always been an accepting company and an accepting place that has always, brought entertainment to the people that listened and watched it. I went over the little bit of the history. I went over a little bit of the popularity of professional wrestling and why it's like that. And I went over a little bit of the backstage lingo and what it means to truly be in a wrestling business. In the end, professional wrestling is fun. It's accepting, and it just wants its fans to be entertained. It's a community which accepts any person regardless of their skin color, their race, or their sexuality, and that's a special thing in today's world. I thank you for watching my speech, and I hope that this let you know into the mind of a WWE fan and someone who likes the wrestling business.